Says Minchas Chinuch, mitzvah shin kaf vav yesh lachkor. הנה מדי ניסור זריעה בתוספת שביעית, אפשר מותר לזרוע מן התורה עד ראש השנה, אף שתשריש בשביעית, מכל מקום, אבל כמו שבת ויום טוב, מותר לעשות מלאכה עד חשיכה, אפשר מלאכה נעשית בשבת. This goes back, and the Minchas Chinuch, he's disturbed by this issue somewhat. This goes back somewhat, at least, to the question of the nature of Tosefet Shvi'it. How much is Tosefet Shvi'it something that's preparing for Shvi'it per se, right? In other words, on Shabbos, you're allowed to do anything, right? We talked about it. I'm allowed to put my bread maker, set my bread maker to make me fresh challah Shabbos morning. You're allowed to do that, right? I'm allowed to set my bread maker on Friday. That I'll have fresh challah Shabbos morning. That's allowed, not a problem. There are problems, but not going to go into them right now. But mitzad shvitat kilim, mitzad all those things, there's no problem unto itself. Does the same apply to Shmita? Now, in a certain sense, what Rashi said is exactly that, right? Because what did Rashi say? Rashi said, you're not allowed to plant a tree on Kaf Av. Why not? Because it'll take root when? 2 weeks later, on Daled Elul. Meaning you're causing the tree to take root during Tosefet Shvi'it. Now, did I do that on Shvi'it or even on Tosefet Shvi'it? No, but I caused it, right? So, L'chora Rashi is saying exactly this idea of Shvitat Kilim. I'm not allowed to cause the land. You remember in unit number 1 and then again in unit number 2, we talked about, is the issue causing the land to work during Shemitah, or is the issue not working ourselves in the land during Shemitah, not working the land by ourselves? That's a Minchas Chinuch's question. See over here, O if shal, kivan shekvar katavti, דמצווים אנחנו על שביתת קרקעות בשמיטה, we have to make sure that the land, it's not the issue, it's not us, the issue is the land. כהגבנו בשבת אסור לבית שמאי, משום שביתת כלים, right? You remember many times I mentioned the שביתת כלים model. And I'll share with you that when I was writing the pages, I kept on writing the שביתת כלים model, and one of the editors kept on saying, why are you choosing that model? It's only Beit Shammai and not everyone understands it. And I say, look, it's the model of Minchas Chinuch site. So that's why it's the easiest for me to say, all right, I know someone specifically explained the Tosefet Shvi'it like that. So it says, Minchat Chinuch, just like you have this Shvitat Kelim idea on Shabbos, according to Beit Shammai, so too we should have the Shvitat Karka idea during Shemitah, L'kulei Alma, because we all hold that the issue is the Karka. ושבתה הארץ שבת להשם. החלם יאסור השלושה בשמיטה מחמת שביתת קרקע הארץ. או אפשר, it's one option. שביתת קרקע דעשה התורה, היינו עד מפורש בקרא, כאילו נזרע וזמירה. Remember, we asked this question in the first unit. He said, שבתה על שבת להשם, right? ובשנה השביעית, שבת שבתון יהיה לארץ. So that means the הארץ has to שבת. Wait. צריכה לתזרע, קרא מחר לתזמור, צריכה לתקצור, right? Wait. So in that case, the issue is what you do, right? And we asked, wait, what's the main issue? Is the main issue Shavta Aretz Shabbat Hashem, or is the main issue Sadchalot Israel Kabachat? So what you do, right? We have a question unit number 1. Minchas Chinuch is saying, I'm asking the same question now, right? The same question I have now. When I want to discuss planting a seed, not a tree. Tree, we have their own issues. I'm allowed to plant seeds during the Tosefet Shvi'it. So you're not allowed to plow, but I'm allowed to plant seeds. It doesn't say. Rabbeinu Tam says only plowing, only those specific Yisurim are usher during Tosefet Shvi'it. So am I allowed to plant seeds during the Tosefet Shvi'it? I'm causing, what would be the problem? The problem would be that I'm causing the land to take root, right, to start these roots during Shemitah. So that's his question. Is there a nature of Shvitat Haaretz when it comes to Shvi'it? That's Minchas Chinuch's question. I just want to see a few poskim. So,
really wouldn't make any difference between that and watering the tree just before Shvi'it.
It's a good question. It reminds me when next time we go to the beginning of the unit, we discuss what other Yisurim are Asur. Sorry? But it's a fair question, a good question. Says Rav Israeli, נמצא דקליטה בשביעית הרבנים תמיש באיסור דרבנן, וכל זה בשביעית עצמה, I'm on page 14. כל זה בשביעית עצמה מהתורה, מה שאין כן בזמן הזה, לפעמים נקטין, בזמן הזה חיוב ושמיטה דרבנן, ייתכן שגם רבנים תם אין בו איסור כלל. זה נראה שאין להחמיר בזריעה וכן נתינת עצי סרק, גם כשהקליטה תהיה בשביעית עצמה. So Rav Shiur Israeli says, based on, he says, when it comes to flowers, all right, comes to bushes, comes to trees that will not bear fruit, all of those, says Rav Shiur Israeli, says, what's the problem? Nowadays, there's no Tosefet Shvit, and Rashi's whole thing was because Tosefet Shvit. We're going to show shortly. We're going to show how the Chazon Ish read exactly into this point. So, in a moment, I'm going to show how the Chazon Ish read exactly into this point. But Rav Shiur Israeli is basically saying exactly this. When it comes to flowers, when it comes to trees that don't bear fruit, nowadays you don't have Tosefet Shvit, so there's no problem to cause the trees to take root during Shmita at all. According to Rashi, it's not a Tosefet issue. According to Ramban and Ritva, there's no Orla in any of those. So it's not a problem. Chazon Ish, I'd say concurs, but I think Chazon Ish wrote this a bit before him. But Chazon Ish goes even more extremely, and I don't know if you all caught, I said a bit of a non sequitur a minute ago. I don't know if you all caught it. I hope some of you did. Says the Chazon Ish, במה שכתבת להסתפק, אם מותר לזרוע בזמן הזה כדי שיקלוט בשביעית. Am I allowed to plant in such a way that the קליטה will be during Shmita nowadays? נראה, כיוון שלא נזכר בגמרא ופוסקים לאסור, אין לנו לחדש איסורים. There's no, the Gemara, the poskim don't say it, so it's mutar. אף על גב דמצינו חומר בנקלט בשביעית יותר מנקלט בערב שביעית, זה דווקא בזמן שתוספת שביעית נוהג. בזמן הזה אין שום איסור מחמת תוספת. Nowadays, nothing, no isur that is based on Tosefet applies. And therefore, just like Rav Shiur Israeli said, there's no problem with taking flowers and having them take root during Shmita, or taking other things like that, right? Flowers, trees that don't bear fruit. Fruit-bearing trees, you have the Ramban and the Ritva, and that's a problem. So fruit-bearing trees, you can't plant in the 44 days before Shmita, right? Behold, like Rabbi Shimon Rabbi. So you can't plant fruit-bearing trees 44 days before Shmita, but flowers, bushes, all those things, you can do until Erev Shmita Mamash. You can do on Erev Rosh Hashanah. What are you guys going to do this year of Rosh Hashanah? Plant some flower seeds, right? So that's the Chazon Ish, that's what Rav Shiur Israeli says. Says Rav Shlomo Zalman, I don't understand. You guys, how do you not catch what B'Tzalel is saying? What's wrong with you people? Rav Shlomo Zalman says the following. The Chazon Ish was Meikal, לענת צריך עיון. דעת רש"י בזמן שהיה נוהג דין תוספת צריכים להיזהר שלא תנקלט בתוספת שביעית. Now, so Rashi was machmir and says you have to make sure it doesn't take root during the Tosefet the month before. So in that case, according to Rashi, כל שכן בשביעית עצמה צריכים שפיר להיזהר, לא לזרוע לפני ראש השנה באופן שקליטה תהיה בשביעית. I don't understand. What did Chazon Ish say? Chazon Ish said a non sequitur. He says, well, Rashi says only during Tosefet Shvi'it. So the Mishnah says 2 weeks, right? That's the opinion we hold by. Mishnah says 2 weeks. Okay, add a month to that. Because Tosefet Shvi'it. Says Chazon Ish, you know the Tosefet Shvi'it, so you can plant whenever you want. Wait a minute, what? What do you say? No, we added another month because of Tosefet Shvi'it. But if you don't have the extra month of Tosefet Shvi'it, you still have to plant 2 weeks before. Up to 2 weeks before. Again, the Chazon Ish took Rashi two steps ahead. Again, Rashi says you have to add a month to the 14 days because of the Tosefet Shvi'it. It says Chazon Ish, but nowadays you don't have the Tosefet Shvi'it, so you can plant trees on Erev Rosh Hashanah. So Shlomo Zalman says, what? How? You still have the 14 days. That's non sequitur. All you said is that according to Rashi, the Tosefet Shvi'it, so take it a month forward, but you still have the 14 days. How does that work? That's the main point that the Shlomo Zalman says. But here's what I think. So the bottom line is, I'll say in a moment, I'll say the bottom line in the Shlomo Zalman, but first, I want to explain the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish says something fantastic, something phenomenal. Let's go back to Minchat Chinuch. What's the Minchat Chinuch's question? Minchat Chinuch's question, fundamentally, he says, right? This isn't my Lomdish saying. This is Chazon. This is the Minchat Chinuch himself explains. It says Minchat Chinuch. What's the problem? What's my suffix? Does Shmita have the nature of Shabbos in terms of Shvitat Kelim, or does it have a nature of Shvitat Haaretz? Right? Is it Shabbat La'aretz, or is it Shabbat Haaretz, or is it me not working during Shmita? Right? Good question. Right? Okay. What's my current nafkamina? Am I allowed to plant a tree in such a way that it'll catch root during Tosefet Shvit now, or during Shvit itself? Now, the whole unit number 2, we said, is the nature of Tosefet Shvi'it what is that, right? Is it of the nature of Tosefet Shabbat? You have to add another month to Shmita, or is it anything that prepares for Shmita, which is the other side of the same coin of saying Shvitat Kelim, right? We said like this. We asked Shmita itself, unit number 1, like unit 1, unit number 2, unit number 3. Unit number 1, we asked, what is the nature, right? For example, you have a goy, a mirala goy, is that any sort of rice? If I tell a goy, go plow my fields on Shmita, is that any sort of rice or not? Well, it depends on whether the Isur is on the person or on the land, right? Fine. Right? Is there a Shvitat Kelim aspect, right? Then we said, okay, unit number 2, Tosefet Shvit, what is that? Is that adding time, or is it a Shvitat Kelim aspect? So that's the other side of the same coin of what we asked in the first unit, right? Says, right, so this is how it worked. The first unit was, is it on the person or on the land? Then we asked, is it on the land, which is the other side of that same coin that you had in unit number 1, or is it like Shabbos, where you have to just add a month before? Says the Chazon Ish, the only reason we hold that Shmita in its essence is the essence of something that applies to the land, Shvitat Kelim, is because of Tosefet Shvit. The Shmita itself really is Isurim on you, on the individual, on the person, on the Jew. You're not allowed to work your field. Now, what about causing the field to work? That's something we learned especially because of Tosefet Shvit. Mimela says a tremendous chidush lahalacha. If I don't have Tosefet Shvit, I'm not concerned about that either. See what he's saying? He says like this: as long as I have Tosefet Shvit, I say, what is Tosefet Shvit? Tosefet Shvit means I'm not allowed to do things which will cause the land to work during Shemitah. Once I cancel Tosefet Shvit, I don't only cancel the Pesach, the Pesach, the Shavuot, the Rosh Chodesh Elul. I'm not only canceling that, I cancel the whole concept of preparing for Shemitah. Why am I allowed to plow my field? This year, I'm allowed to plow my field on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Why? No Tosefet Shvit. Yeah, but I'm still going to cause the land to work during Shemitah. Says Chazon Ish, yes, the idea of causing the land to work during Shemitah does not apply if you don't have Tosefet Shvit. Tosefet Shvit is what gives it that nature. What gives Shemitah the nature of being Shabbat Haaretz is the Tosefet Shvit. That's what. I'll take this back to Rav Moshe. Unit number 2. The Gzerat HaKatuv, the Halacha Hashem Sinai, Halacha Hashem Sinai, that either says, B'chilish HaKatzil Tishbot. What is B'chilish HaKatzil Tishbot? A special Isur that says you're not to prepare before Shemitah for Shemitah. Right? You're not to do things before Shemitah that will cause the land to work during Shemitah. Once B'chilish doesn't apply, you're allowed to do things that will cause the land to work during Shemitah, including everything. Or, the Halacha Hashem Sinai says, am I allowed to do things that will benefit the land? Well, Eser Natiyot depends on the Hefsed, Chulei. But if there's no serious Hefsed issue going on, so no, you're not allowed to do anything that will prepare the land for Shemitah, that will prepare the land for working during Shemitah. Once we cancel Tosefet Shvi'it, it doesn't only cancel the technical prohibition to plow before Shemitah. Once you cancel Tosefet Shvi'it, no deal. There's no problem with making the land work during Shemitah. That's what you're talking about. Shlomo Zalman says, what are you talking about? Wait, where does this come from? All we said was that the 30 days before Rosh Chodesh Elul is relevant because of Tosefet Shvit. And if not, Rosh Chodesh Tishrei is relevant because of Tosefet Shvit. It says Chazon Ish, no, you're still thinking in a Shvitat Kelim mindset, but I'm not there. I say that once you don't have Tosefet Shvit, Mimele, you don't have any of this concept of preparing the land for Shmita, for causing the land to work during Shmita. There's no problem to cause the land to work during Shmita if they don't have a Shvit. That's what the Chazon Ish is saying. That's Rav Shlomo Israeli says as well. That's why it's a machloket to Rav Shlomo Zalman, who says that it still applies in Elul, and Rav Shlomo and the Chazon Ish and Rav Shlomo Israeli, who say it no longer applies at all.